Hi, this is Pastor Smith, and I want to talk a little bit about faith, God's election, and what it means to be chosen. Now, we are told in Ephesians 2 8 and 9 that faith is a gift from God. Now, like any gift, it has to be given from God as He determines, as we find out in 1 Corinthians 12:11, that faith or any gift is given as He determines, not as I determine. I may want to walk into a hospital and heal everybody in there, but that doesn't mean I will, because it's a gift. Healing is a gift from God as He determines who shall have it. Same thing with faith. Faith is given from God. And we're told in 2 Corinthians 1:9 that we are saved by grace, which was given to us before the world began. Who is it talking to? Everybody on the face of the earth, that grace is given to everyone so that everyone can be saved? If so, then why isn't everyone saved? But it's their choice, you might say. Do they really have a choice? Because we can see from 2 Timothy 1 verse 9 that grace is given to some people to turn to God at a appointed time in their life. Not everyone has this grace. Not everyone can make it within themselves to turn from their sins and to trust Christ. If so, then salvation would be universal, but it's conditional. Is unconditional. There's no conditions on God's election, because God chooses whom He will have mercy, and He chooses whom He will not have mercy, as we read in Romans chapter 9. Because who am I to tell God, why did you make me this way? He's the potter, I'm the clay. He can make some people for noble purposes and some for destruction. God has a plan for each and every individual on the face of the earth. Some plans is for His glory. Some plans is for His destruction. He rose up Pharaoh in the days of Moses for the sole purpose of destroying him. He didn't give Pharaoh a choice. He hardened his heart time after time after time. Now we learn in Revelation 17:8 that there's names written in the Lamb's book of life since the foundations of the world, since the world, from the creation of the world. Now, some people, I've heard people say, certain people say, that everyone's names is written in the Lamb's book of life. If so, where does it say that their names was erased? God's pen does not have an eraser. He does not change His mind based upon what we can do or have done. God's plan is etched in stone, and it's going to be fulfilled because of God's sovereignty. We have to know and understand what sovereignty is. Sovereignty is that God's all-powerful and in control of all things. He orchestrates all things to their appointed end. All things. Your salvation, my salvation, the salvation of your neighbors if they come to Christ. He orchestrates their salvation. He puts people in their path to sow a seed here, sow a seed there. That in the due time, it will produce a harvest. Job says salvation comes from God. It doesn't come from me, from my own decisions, because in fact it says in, I believe it is John chapter 1 verse 14, we are saved nor by the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. It says we're not saved by the will of man. That eliminates, with many other verses, man's free will. We cannot choose God. All that fallen man can do is run away from God and never to God. Because in fact, it says in Matthew 22:14 that many are called and few are chosen. I've talked to a pastor recently who told me that God calls everyone and he chooses everyone. Well, that's in direct contradiction of scriptures. And he couldn't see that. He tried to explain what Matthew 22:14 meant. And he just explained it away so it would fit his own fallen theology. Okay, the many that are called, who will come to Christ unless there's a clear call from God? He sends people out to in the highways and the byways to proclaim the gospel, to compel everyone to come in. So many are called because of God's chosen vessels to send out, but few are chosen. Just because he chooses them doesn't mean that everyone is chosen. Because God, it's kind of like this. Before the foundations of the world, before the fall in the Garden of Eden, before God even said, "Let there be light," he foreknew who would be saved. He did not foreknow who he would. I said that wrong again. Excuse me. He did not foreknow who would be saved. He foreknew who he would save. That because God knows the end from the beginning. God looks all the way to the very end and says, okay, I'm going to choose this one and that one, but not this one. That one, but not this one. How can a just God do that, you say? Because he's just in all he does. Who are you to criticize God? He's the potter, you're the clay. A just God is a God that's in control of all things, orchestrating all things to their appointed end. It's not me that says this. It's in the Bible. It's the whole of scriptures that teaches it. Jesus said, you have not chosen me, but I've chosen you, so that you may bear much fruit. In John chapter 15. If we did not choose him, how can we even think that I made a personal decision to follow Christ? The decision is not yours to make. It belongs to God. We may not know or understand God's ways, and we may not know somebody's election, but we can know the proof of that election. We do that here written down in Galatians 5:23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law, because they fulfill the law of God. The law of God is to walk in love as God is love. And if we bear the fruits of the Spirit, we are fulfilling the law of Christ. And we may not know somebody's election, but we can know the fruit of that election. We can know that someone is saved and redeemed and justified by the Lamb of God since the foundations of the world, by seeing the life that they're living, because it will bear fruit. This is Pastor Smith, and have a wonderful day. God bless.